All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Codecraft Foundation Software Engineering Series. Very excited to have our three panelists today. So we have Kyle, Celeste, and Shweta, and we're just going to talk about a few things. And Kyle, why don't we start with you? You've had like a really interesting segue, career, how you got to software engineering.
Yeah, yeah. I started out as a just a scientist. I went to school for geology back in 2003 at the University of Maine, and I'm actually from New York originally. And as I was kind of going after high school, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and I I went to a community college close by, and I actually started out as a music major my very first year, and I was a good singer, but I didn't really know if it would take me anywhere. And I was, it took me a while to kind of grow up and understand that life was more about living in that moment and just enjoying what you do. It was about having something fruitful to do. And so my second year, I decided to, talk to some guidance counselors and things like that at the school and go into math and science as a broad degree. Um, and so I did that, and I really fell in love with geology, and I thought it was so cool and such an interesting science. And it really captured me, and I thought it was awesome. And so I chose a 4-year school to go to after community college, and I went to the University of Maine, which was far away from home. And while I was there, I was there for 3 years, and I got my degree in geology. And after that, unfortunately, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life still. And as a person with a degree in geology, I didn't know where that was going to take me. And so for a few months after I graduated, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had applied for a job with a place called the Naval Oceanographic Office, which was in Mississippi. So um, I got word that I had a job offer, and so I went down to Mississippi and I took that job. And it was related in some way to geology. It was underwater mapping using sonar systems on U.S. Navy ships, which was awesome. So I got to travel the world and see every country imaginable because all of our ships were out forward deployed. So we had to go hop on them, operate these sonar systems, collect the data, process the data. So I started out in geology. I got into kind of oceanography and ocean mapping. And so I had this kind of broad scientific kind of base of work and knowledge. And it was an awesome job. And I had so much fun working with that technology and traveling all the time. But then I had a family and a wife. I got married, and then I started to have children. And traveling overseas wasn't something that was going to be great for my family down the road. And I want something more stable where I could stay at home. And so I decided to go back to school for another degree in computer
How old were
science.
you when you went back to school?
I was 32 years old. I was
Wow.
32 years old.
Okay, so it's a big change.
Yeah, I couldn't do online school, so I had to drive to the school. So it was about 30-minute drive, but I was going to school, 4 nights a week with
Was
a
that
little
hard
child.
working and going to school at the same time while having a family?
It was, but at that time I only had one child, and my wife had decided to stay home to raise her. So that it was a little bit easier in that respect. But now I have 4 kids, and my wife is staying home, and life is way harder now than it was when I was going to school and we had one kid. So luckily, I'm not going to school now. That computer science degree was my third. I was able to get a master's degree while I was in my first job. They paid my salary for a year and allowed me to go to school
Wow.
as my full-time job, which was amazing. Um, and then, yeah, so I decided to get a degree in computer science because I thought that was I loved coding. As a scientist, I was able to do a lot of scripting and coding in order to help my science kind of duties, but I wasn't a full-time developer. So I was exposed to it, and then I just loved the logic, and I always loved and was passionate about the fact that I could write something on a keyboard and I could get my computer to do something for me. That was so cool. I loved that. And so that's what kind of propelled me into the computer science realm, and knowing that I could really get a job anywhere. And of course, what better place to work than sunny Florida? And so my wife and I moved over here and took a job with L3 Harris. And, we've been doing this. I've been doing this for 5 years as a full-time software engineer, and I've loved every minute of it. I think it's great that I was able to find my passion and go with it, because what oftentimes happens is if you work something you're passionate about, it can become more of a burden, because you're like, oh, I have to do this now every day,
Yeah.
and you might get tired of it. But as a software engineer, the coolest thing about being a software engineer is that your world is always evolving and changing and churning, and so you're always learning something new, and that is one of the best things about being a software engineer. And being able to tell a computer what you want it to do is still pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
So thank you. So Shweta, I'll hand it over to you and have you tell us about yourself and your journey.
Thank you, Kyle. First, I want to say that I'm a little jealous of your school in Maine. We just went there this past month on vacation, and I absolutely love Maine. It is
So
so
beautiful.
beautiful. It is extremely beautiful. I would like to go there again and again.
Yeah.
It is it's extremely beautiful. But back to this. Well, I was born and raised in India, and that's where I actually went to school the first time around. My first degree is in business, and I went to school at University of Delhi, which is in New Delhi, the capital of India, and then I moved here to the U.S. About 12 years ago, and I started working at Hertz, the car rental company, as their customer service representative, and then I moved on to managing a branch. But that is unfortunately not something that I jived with. I guess it just never clicked with me. I enjoyed talking to people and hearing stories about people, but that was not something that I was happy about. Um, but I remember when I was little and we got our very first computer at home. I was very interested in trying to like figure out how things inside it works, like what makes, like if you click your mouse and you point it at something, why and how it does all of that. That always fascinated me. And then in that whole meantime, while I was here and working at Hertz, my brother back home went to school for software engineering, and he would explain me and tell me all of these things that he's learning, and I was extremely like mesmerized, and I wanted to learn that myself. So I decided to go back to school when I
Same
was still
question
working
for
for
you.
her.
How old were you? I talked right
Yeah,
over you.
I was 30 when I went back to school. And I just graduated last year in December.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I went to school. The first part of my schooling was at a local college where I was working full time at Hertz, and then I would drive there to do classes because they didn't have online classes for the classes that I was taking. And I was actually a IT major at that time, and so one of my electives I had to take while I was majoring in information technology was programming, and it was C++. And I remember taking that class and absolutely falling in love with it. I'm like, I don't want to do IT anymore. I want to do this because this is so cool. Like, I can do things and I can make the computer do things. And
Was it
it,
was it an intro to C++
yeah,
class?
it was an intro to C++ class. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I had to take a couple of more IT classes because I had changed my major, but I still had to take a couple more classes. And that couple of semester where I did not take computer science classes, I missed it so much coding, and I was like, okay, this is what I need to do because IT is not for me. I have to do coding.
Yeah.
Just so you know, as an IT person, that breaks my heart a little.
I am so sorry. I know it was cool. Like when I did that, it was they taught you all of the switches, and you still do a little bit of
I know it's not the
programming,
same.
but it's not the same. And I was like, you know what? I think I found my calling. And then I did my associates in that in the community college, and instead of continuing my IT degree because they had the IT degree there, I actually looked around and I found Florida State university did online classes, so that's where I transferred, and I stayed there for a couple of years, and it was all 100% online. I did not go to a school. It was everything was at home. Professors and all of the classes, everything was recorded online, and then you would have to just, watch the videos and everything and do your whole homework. It was a little bit challenging, but you gotta keep your head strong because it's not a, you know, it's a little bit harder to do it online. And then I graduated last year in December, and I was offered a job with Harris in January, and I started in March, and here I am, and I love it. I love what I do.
Hey, so I just wanted to pick up on two things that you said. So, intro to programming was by far my favorite class in every college course I've ever taken. It was that like you said, like where it's just you fell in love with it because and you look back at like learning what a class is and a function and a case statement and like variables, just like basic stuff that we take for granted nowadays. But back then it was mind blowing,
It
so
yes,
powerful.
it was. I remember like one of the very last project or what like we had to do was create a tic-tac-toe game on command line, and I remember doing it, and I showed it to everybody that I know, and then I could show it to them like, look, I made this, like you
Yeah,
can actually play this, and it's like I did this, like whatever you're doing, I wrote all of this and you can do it.
yeah,
It took me a very long time back then. It took me like a day or two to do it. I mean, obviously it was intro, so it would be a little bit easy, like a whole lot easier now. But I remember doing it the very first time. I still remember I was so happy when it started working. I had to show it to everybody. Be like, look, I
yeah.
did this. I created a game and you can actually play it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can remember a time where I felt like I was an expert at something so quickly, and I know I wasn't as a you know a freshman in computer science, but I felt so smart and so awesome that like programming. And you look at it nowadays, and you look back on your career, and you're like, I'm still kind of doing the basic fundamentals now.
Mhm.
I mean, I those what I was good at then and love so much, it's in everything I do. Those fundamentals are there. And
Yeah.
I don't think that I've experienced that with other things like math. It still seems abstract to me. But coding, like I know how to code. I know I know what classes are and functions, and I know what all these building blocks are, and I get to use them. I don't have to. They don't go on the shelf. It's I get to use it every day.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So whatever you learn, you're always using it and building on it. So I think that is the coolest part. Like you know what you know, and then you just keep on building on it because you have to constantly learn new things.
Yeah.
Uh, that to me is it's amazing. Yeah.
And the why part too is like the why, like why is this working? When you were talking about that, why does it work that way? That's exactly what you do as a software engineer. You're digging into code or you're writing code. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. If you're building something brand new or working on something that's already there, but it's the same. You run into the same thing. You have to like rip it all apart. It's like taking your clothes out of your drawer and then trying to fit them nicely
Then
back
back.
together so you know what's in the drawer and how the clothes are folded. And you
Mhm.
always get that satisfaction of I know this, I know why this is happening. And I think people like us just appreciate that kind of thing.
Yes, satisfaction of things working. Oh,
Now,
well, Celeste, why don't you tell us about your story?
Well, for me, as a kid, I loved math. That was something that I always enjoyed. Um, so growing up, I had a roller coaster pretty much of careers I wanted to do. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a firefighter because I wanted to drive the fire truck. When I was in middle school, I wanted to be a chef because I like to eat. Then when I got to high school, I learned how to play the guitar. My uncle taught me, and I was like, I want to be a sound engineer. But back home, I grew up in Puerto Rico. Back home, that's not a degree you can actually obtain. You will only be able to get a certification. So after speaking with my uncle, he's a professor, he was like, why don't you study electrical engineering? You're good at math, you like math, you like building stuff. As a kid, I will pretty much everything that was broken, I will try to fix it. My brother's control remote cars, I will try to see what was going on, even if I didn't know anything about it, but it just looked cool. So I wanted to get like hands-on with everything. So after doing a bit of research, I decided to go to the University of Puerto Rico in Maya West, where I study electrical engineering. Um, Unlike you guys, my introduction to programming class, I didn't like it. It was funny because at the time, I understood everything. I was doing well in the class, but it was not something that I enjoyed. It was just not for me at the time because I think it's pretty much because we did it all the programming we did it by hand. We
Oh, wow.
if we did have a program that we designed, it will be like on our own. Our test will be like written. So
Wow.
there was no fun, at least for the class that was offered for electrical engineers, because electrical engineers don't take the same course as computer engineering majors or computer science majors or software engineers. So our course was kind of off, let's
Mm.
say. My freshman year, I took a lab actually that was called Tools and Toys. That lab pretty much gave us an introduction to um, every side in electrical and computer engineering. So electrical engineering is divided, at least in my campus, in 5 fields: uh, digital signal processing, power electronics, power systems, RF, which is radio frequency antennas, and electronics or embedded systems. So we will take a lab for every single one. We will do something related to that field, and we will do one for hardware in computer engineering and one for software in computer engineering. And that's when I sort of started learning more about programming and started to like it more because I got to incorporate that hardware side that I was missing. Um, Further on my college career, I started doing an undergraduate research project with Professor Naida Santiago. She's sort of my second mom now.
Hmm.
She'll make sure that everyone eats, that everyone sleeps, and just takes care of everyone, which I'm very grateful for because I drove to school every day. My house was like an hour away from campus. So as a student athlete, driving in the morning and then driving at night, it was a lot, to
Hmm.
be honest. So um, cramming in the studying time plus sleeping plus driving, all this stuff was very difficult, but at the same time rewarding when you were able to, let's say, I had a project and the code that I had no idea what was going on suddenly worked. That was the greatest feeling ever.
Hmm.
But yeah, working with Professor Naida Santiago, I started doing a lot of programming because I was part of the embedded research project. We designed a an outreach program for elementary, middle school, and high school students to get them involved in STEM, just for them to see, like, hey, coding and programming and hardware stuff are not complicated. You can get a LED and a battery, and you can do something simple, and it will be fun. So we call it the Tech Carnival, and we did a skee ball, we did a target shooter, a high striker, which is the one that you hit with the hammer and the bell goes up.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of the bell, we had LEDs that uh, we use a pressure sensor that when you hit it, it will turn on the LEDs.
That's cool.
So
That is very cool.
for that project, we use Arduinos, and there's a lot of libraries you can use with Arduinos. But my professor was like, no, you ain't using any of that. You're programming from scratch. And at the time, my project was filled with electrical engineers. No one knew how to program. So it was 6 of us that would have to sit down and be like, okay, so we know how to make this work on the hardware side. Now we gotta make it work by incorporating the script to it. And that was really fun because getting to see, hey, I did this additionally with a script, it was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much how I got involved with software. Then once I graduated, I started working at L3 Harris like a year and a half ago as an image science engineer. So that's been a change because I did do image processing in school, but not to the level that I'm doing here. And there's a lot of programming involved in order to filter images, get everything that we need. So it's been very interesting.
Yeah. What a broad set of technologies and things that you've worked on. You should be happy with, proud of the fact that you've worked in all those fields. And, it's funny that you liked music and I liked music and you played the guitar and what you wanted to be a sound engineer. I mean, you kind of knew when you wanted to do something kind of engineering. And so that was really good. When I was, in music, I just wanted to go be playing a band or something like that. So it's really good that you knew, when you were younger. I think it's really important if you have a track that you want to go on, what, you might have, it might be a little broad, but at least you had some definition of what you wanted to be. And you kind of knew you wanted to be an engineer of some sort. That's really good. And so the younger you know that, the better, I think. And so go ahead.
And I'm sorry, but also like I feel like even if you don't know like what you want to do or whatever, I feel like computer science is a field where you don't need to like you can work in so many things. So like you, Celeste, you wanted to do like sound engineering. You could still be a software engineer and work somewhere where it does like with sound. Like right now, you're doing image processing, or you can work like if you like space. Like I love space, but so if you want to work with something that's space related, you can still do all of that being a software engineer because everything requires you to use computers or use applications, and you need somebody that knows how to make them. So you can work in so many fields. It doesn't have to be just one particular field. It can be anything that you want to do.
Yeah. And you don't have to know everything about that field. Like if you're,
Yep.
I don't know, like a scientist or whatever, like I was as an oceanographer, you really had to kind of be that. But like you said, like I could have probably learned to code and I could be in that field because I liked it, or I could be in the music industry and be a software engineer in it, but I'm still exposed and surrounded by it. So yeah, you're totally right.
So you can do whatever you want, like Celeste. Like if you wanted to do like do something to do with sound, you can still do it because you have that background knowledge of knowing how things work.
That was sort of my plan when I started electrical engineering because the digital signal processing is sort of like a base for sound engineering because it involves a lot of processing different signals and sounds and all that stuff. So it's sort of similar. So for me, that was going to be like a stepping stone. And then I got sidetracked by software.
Yeah, because you started to love it so much. That's why.
Yeah.
Those are funny. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Before we close out today, I think it would be really neat for you to tell the kids what it is that you guys like to do in your spare time.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Give me 1 second because my computer for some reason is running out of battery.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Well, I'll take it. So, what do I like to do for fun? I right now I like to do a couple of things. I really like to do Taekwondo. It's fun to get out there and do some flying kicks, and I've been doing that for about a month or two, and it's been a lot of fun. I like to do nerdy stuff like genealogy, where I get to trace my ancestors and all that. I think history is really cool. So um, I I guess it's a good example of something that I really love that I don't want to be a historian. Like I love it. I love history, but I don't want to be a historian. So but like I said earlier, when you find that thing that you love and you want to do, that's like the perfect combination. But I like history, and so I like to figure out, and it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. And I was telling my young daughter, she's like, Dad, because we're working from home nowadays with the COVID. What do you like to do? I mean, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? She's looking at my computer. What are you doing, Dad? And it's kind of like I'm putting together a puzzle. Like that's what my job is. I put puzzles together. She has a puzzle in the next room, literally, and I'm like, that's kind of what I do. I put puzzles together, and I love it. But yeah, I like to do those things and play with the kids. I have 4 kids, so I like to have a nice work-life balance, and so I try to, when I come home, I like to hang out with the kids and just be a good dad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Celeste
So
has-
you go ahead, Celeste.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
For me, since I started playing basketball when I was 6, that pretty much consumed my whole life. Uh, there were a lot of skip school activities, a lot of family reunions that I didn't get to go. But I love playing basketball, so I would rather be in the court than anywhere else. Now I'm a bit too old for it, sadly, and I sort of transfer into doing CrossFit because since I've been exercising my whole life, my body sort of needs now the exercise. So COVID has not been good for me at all.
Mm.
But yeah, I like exercising since I live in Rochester now. There's snow. That's
Oh, boy.
something that I didn't grow up with. So snowboarding was something that as a kid I always wanted to do. So hopefully when everything is better, I will get the chance to learn how to snowboard and stuff.
I
Yeah,
think
awesome.
you'll
I
really
learned
love it. I feel the most at peace when I'm skiing. It's my favorite thing to do in the world.
I learned how to ice skate though. That was the
Oh,
first
wow.
thing that I did. One of my coworkers, one of my friends from work, they're big hockey fans here. So they were like, "We're going ice skating. You need hockey skates.
Mm.
We're gonna teach you how to skate." And I fell, and it hurt, but it was great though. Having a bunch of 7-year-olds teach you how to skate was hilarious, but
And I'm
it
like,
was really fun though.
Cool.
Shweta?
Alrighty, so yep, I'll go. I tried skiing and I hated it. I don't care at all. We went to Colorado this past year before COVID happened, and we tried skiing, and just no. But apart from not liking skiing, I love to hike. The weather is like really nice outside right now. I wish I was hiking, but my husband and I, we love to hike. In fact, we in 2017, my husband and I, we climbed Kilimanjaro in Africa.
What?
Wow.
Yes, we did. It was amazing. It is so beautiful. I recommend that to everybody. It's not one of those things where you have to like learn like how to climb and like whatever. It's one of the easiest mountains that you can climb. It's just hiking for 7 days. The only thing is like you just have to do it slowly because you gain so much altitude so very fast. But it's super easy that way. It's just walking. There is no technical knowledge you need. Apart from that, I also like to do painting. I love water painting, watercolors. And we have a dog, and I love to take him out and play around and go driving with him. But that I like to be outdoors whenever I can.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to be a it's funny because one of the motivating factors for me when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life when I was 18 and 19 and 20, the single most important thing at that time was to be outside. I wanted a job where I could be outside. That's what led me to geology, and here I am 20 years later inside every single day, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice though. Like you would think, like my brother-in-law, he likes to work outside and everything, and it's to me like I like doing that too. But there's a certain kind of satisfaction you get when something that you're working on works, and you're like, yay, it works. It's just doing that almost every day it is as good as being outside, because being outside is nice, but then again, like having that moment of hurrah when you do something and it works is also something completely different, and you get to do that almost every day, so you feel that happiness almost every day when something works you know
Yeah.
so
Well,
I think it's
the nice
beautiful.
thing about being a software engineer and COVID is you can actually be outside with with your computer, and so you
Yeah,
can put two and two together. Maybe I don't know how you can get a signal on top of a mountain, but if you could do that, you could actually take your computer out there and
out there, yeah,
code
you
and
can
be
do it.
on.
Absolutely. Like right now, these days, because weather is so nice out, like not that it's outside. I mean, I take my laptop out and I work in our balcony all the time. We have a little lake and, little trees, and you can see ducks and everything. And so, I don't see why, as long as you have, like you said, as long as you have internet, like you can go to like rent out a, what do you call this thing, thing in Tennessee, and you can just, you know, be out like in the wilderness, as we like to call and just like work outside. So
Yeah.
you can still work outside, but
Yeah.
being not being outside, but still outside.
It's
Yeah.
one of the perks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.